The fluorescent light flickered once more. No passengers noticed. Deep beneath the bustling city streets, where the sounds of traffic were nothing more than distant whispers, the abandoned metro station breathed with mechanical life. Platform 47 had been closed to the public for 15 years, but its systems had never truly stopped working. Down here, in the forgotten arteries of urban civilization, technology continued its patient vigil over empty platforms and silent tracks. The ventilation system exhaled through rusted grates, moving stale air through tunnels that once carried thousands of commuters daily. Each breath of the underground wind carried echoes of voices long silenced, footsteps that would never return. The air moved like ghostly passengers through corridors designed for human traffic, but now serving only the mechanical inhabitants of this subterranean realm. Water dripped steadily from pipes that had been installed decades ago, each drop marking time in the eternal darkness. The sound echoed through empty tile corridors, creating a rhythm as regular as a heartbeat. Drip, echo, drip, echo. The water system knew its purpose even without passengers to serve, maintaining pressure, preventing flood, ensuring that if humans ever returned, fresh water would be waiting. But these systems had been working in isolation much longer than anyone remembered. Emergency lighting cast amber pools along the platform edges, their sensors detecting no movement yet continuing their endless watch. Motion sensors swept empty spaces, their electronic eyes searching for passengers who would never come. The lights had been programmed for human safety, but now they illuminated only dust particles dancing in the stagnant air. Track monitoring systems measured temperature, pressure, and electrical conductivity along rails that would never again feel the weight of subway cars. Electronic sensors built into the steel rails continued their diagnostic routines, reporting track conditions to computer systems that filed their reports in digital archives no human would ever read.
The escalators stood frozen in place, their mechanical steps creating a metal staircase to nowhere. Safety sensors at the top and bottom waited eternally for feet that would activate their motion, for weight that would start their gentle mechanical climbing. Each step was perfectly positioned, ready to carry passengers between the surface world and this underground realm, yet destined to remain motionless. Now imagine descending those silent steps, your footsteps the only sound in the vast mechanical cathedral. The turnstiles waited with mechanical patience, their arms prepared to rotate at the touch of a transit guard that would never come. Magnetic card readers continued to listen for the electronic whisper of payment authorization, their circuits powered and ready despite the absence of anyone to grant passage. Platform benches carved from stone and steel held no waiting passengers, their surfaces designed to support the weight of tired commuters now supported only the accumulated dust of years. The benches maintained their structural integrity with stubborn dignity, ready to provide rest to travelers who existed only in the memory of the station's original architects. Public address speakers hung silent from the ceiling, their amplifiers powered but unused. The system maintained perfect audio clarity, ready to announce arrivals and departures to empty platforms. Occasionally, the speakers would emit a soft electronic hum, as if testing their voice for announcements that would never come. Why did the silence feel so complete, yet so full of waiting? Surveillance cameras continued their programmed sweeps, recording hours of empty corridors and vacant platforms onto hard drives that would eventually fill with nothing but stillness. Their lenses, designed to protect passengers from crime, now documented only the slow accumulation of dust and the occasional rat exploring the abandoned urban maze. The ventilation fans deep in the tunnel system turned steadily, drawing air from the surface world and cycling it through the underground network. These mechanical lungs had been installed to prevent the buildup of dangerous gases, to ensure air quality for passengers. Now they breathed for no one, maintaining atmospheric conditions in a world without atmosphere. Emergency exit signs glowed with steady electronic persistence, marking routes to safety that no one needed to take. Battery backup systems kept these signs illuminated, preparing for evacuations of crowds that no longer existed. The signs pointed toward stairwells that led to surface streets, offering escape from an underground that had become completely safe through absolute abandonment. And you can feel the weight of the city above. Tons of concrete and steel supported by these forgotten foundations. Water pumps worked continuously in the depths below the platform level, preventing floodwaters from reclaiming the tunnels. These pumps understood their critical mission to keep the underground spaces dry and navigable. They processed thousands of gallons daily, routing groundwater and storm runoff away from track levels. The pumps knew that water was the enemy of all electrical systems, all careful human engineering. Electrical distribution panels hummed quietly in locked maintenance rooms, routing power to systems throughout the abandoned network. Circuit breakers monitored current flow, ready to protect equipment from electrical surges. These panels distributed electricity like mechanical arteries, ensuring that every light, every sensor, every motor continued to receive the power needed for eternal vigilance. The tunnel ventilation system extended for miles underground, connecting abandoned stations to active ones, moving air through a network larger than most people could imagine. Massive fans, some large enough for a person to walk through, pushed atmosphere through concrete arteries. The air they moved carried no human breath, no conversation, no life, only the mechanical respiration of urban infrastructure. And you realize that this underground world has its own weather, its own seasons, its own time.
Platform edge sensors monitored the space between the platform and the tracks, designed to detect anything that might fall into the path of oncoming trains. These sensors maintained their vigil over tracks that would never again carry rolling stock, watching for dangers to trains that would never arrive. Their electronic attention never wavered, even in the certainty of eternal emptiness. Fire suppression systems stood ready throughout the tunnels, their sprinkler heads and gas suppressors prepared to activate at the first sign of flame. Heat detectors and smoke sensors maintained constant awareness of temperature and air quality. These systems had been designed to protect passengers during emergencies, but now they protected only themselves and the mechanical systems they served. Communication cables running along tunnel walls continued to carry signals between surface control centers and underground monitoring stations.
Data flowed through fiber optic lines, reporting system status from the depths to surface computers. Information about temperature, humidity, airflow, and electrical consumption traveled at light speed through networks that connected the underground to the world above. The underground speaks to the surface world, but only in the language of data and sensor readings. Drainage systems channeled water through carefully engineered paths, preventing any accumulation that might damage electronic equipment or structural foundations. Storm drains connected the abandoned stations to the city's water management network, ensuring that even in the deepest tunnels, water found its proper path. The engineers had planned for rain that might not fall for decades, storms that might never come. Emergency communication systems maintained links to police, fire, and medical services, ready to summon help for emergencies in spaces where no emergencies could occur. Call boxes positioned along tunnel walls waited for hands that would never press their buttons, voices that would never call for assistance. These systems represented ultimate preparedness for situations that had become impossible. The station's public toilets had been sealed and secured, but their water systems continued to circulate, preventing pipe damage from freezing and maintaining pressure throughout the plumbing network. Water flowed through pipes that served no one, maintaining readiness for facilities that would never again accommodate human needs.
Even in abandonment, the systems maintained dignity, hope, and readiness for return. Escalator safety sensors at each level monitored for obstructions that could jam the mechanical systems, despite the escalator's motionless state. These sensors represented mechanical optimism, the possibility that someday the escalators might need to carry passengers again, and when that day came, they would be ready and safe. Platform heating systems worked through winter months, maintaining temperatures that would keep passengers comfortable during cold weather waits. The heating elements glowed in empty spaces, warming only air and dust particles. Thermostats throughout the station maintained their programmed temperatures, creating comfortable environments for no one. Emergency lighting systems tested themselves regularly, briefly illuminating passages to ensure that all bulbs remained functional. During these tests, the abandoned station blazed briefly with full lighting, revealing every tile, every poster, every sign to an audience of monitoring cameras and electronic sensors. Then the lights dimmed again to their energy-efficient standby levels. You can see it all clearly now, every corner, every surface designed for human comfort and safety. The ventilation system's air quality sensors monitored carbon monoxide levels, humidity, and temperature, maintaining perfect atmospheric conditions for passengers who existed only in the system's original programming. These sensors had never detected dangerous gas levels, never triggered emergency alerts, yet they continued their vigilant measurement of air that no human would ever breathe. Sound dampening materials installed throughout the tunnels absorbed the echoes of machinery, creating acoustic environments designed for human comfort. These materials muffled the noise of ventilation fans, water pumps, and electrical systems, maintaining sound levels appropriate for public spaces. They performed their acoustic magic for an audience of electronic ears. Electrical grounding systems throughout the tunnels protected against dangerous voltage accumulations, routing stray electrical currents safely into the earth.
These grounding networks ensured that every metal surface remained safe to touch, every handrail and platform edge electrically neutral. The systems maintained human safety standards in spaces where humans never ventured. Every surface has been made safe for your touch, every pathway cleared for your passage.
Water temperature regulation systems maintained tepid water in pipe networks, preventing freezing during winter months and avoiding scalding temperatures during summer. These thermal management systems understood that water infrastructure required protection against temperature extremes, regardless of whether anyone would ever use the water they preserved. The tunnel's structural monitoring systems used electronic sensors to detect any settling, expansion, or stress in the concrete and steel framework. Strain gauges measured microscopic movements in support beams, ensuring structural integrity for a station that would never again support crowds of passengers. The tunnels monitored their own health with scientific precision. Emergency power systems tested themselves monthly, starting backup generators and verifying that all critical systems would remain operational during power outages. These tests echoed through empty tunnels as diesel generators roared to life, proving their readiness to maintain the underground world during surface electrical failures. The underground has its own power, its own independence from the world above. Pest control systems maintained environments hostile to rodents and insects, preserving sanitary conditions in food service areas that would never again serve food. Ultrasonic pest deterrents generated sounds beyond human hearing, creating acoustic barriers that protected empty restaurants and vacant concession stands. Platform-level indicators showed exactly where subway car doors would open, painted lines and raised tactile markings guiding passengers to optimal boarding positions. These markings waited with infinite patience for travelers who would never need their guidance, maintaining perfect accuracy for subway cars that would never arrive. The station's lost and found office remained locked and empty, its catalogs and storage systems ready to reunite passengers with forgotten belongings. Computers waited to process claims for items that would never be lost in a station where no one came to lose anything. Yet somehow you feel that nothing here is truly lost, only waiting to be found again. Information displays throughout the station maintained their electronic readiness, capable of showing train schedules, service announcements, and emergency information to screens that reflected only their own glow. These displays could instantly communicate vital information to crowds that existed only in their programming, schedules for trains that ran only in electronic memory. Tunnel cleaning systems continued their maintenance routines. Automated sweepers and scrubbers working through programmed cycles to maintain cleanliness standards for spaces that accumulated only dust. These mechanical janitors performed their duties with the dedication of systems designed for places where cleanliness mattered to human health and comfort. Fare collection systems maintained their electronic vigilance, ready to process payments and validate transfers for a transit network that existed in perfect digital simulation within their memory banks. Turnstile computers tracked phantom passengers, maintaining statistical models of ridership patterns that would never again reflect reality. Numbers flow like passengers through electronic turnstiles, creating the mathematics of movement without motion. Emergency medical stations remained stocked and ready throughout the tunnels,
automated external defibrillators charged and waiting to save lives in spaces where no life was at risk. First aid equipment maintained its sterile readiness in environments that had achieved perfect safety through absolute emptiness. Platform announcement systems maintained their capacity for multiple languages, ready to provide information in dozens of tongues to travelers from around the world. These systems held the vocabulary of global communication, prepared to speak to international visitors who would never need translation in spaces they would never visit. The tunnel's fire detection network monitored smoke, heat, and gas concentrations with sensors spaced throughout the underground network. These systems could detect a single cigarette or overheated electrical component anywhere in the miles of tunnel, ready to coordinate emergency response to fires that could only exist in electronic simulation. Safety systems watch over dangers that exist only in their programming, threats that live only in their memory. Water filtration systems processed the underground water supply continuously, maintaining drinking water quality standards for fountains that would never quench thirst. Filtration equipment removed impurities from water that flowed through pipes serving no one, maintaining purity standards for liquid that would never touch human lips. Escalator maintenance systems performed diagnostic routines on motionless machinery, checking motor functions, brake systems, and safety sensors on equipment designed to move but destined to remain still. These diagnostics verified the mechanical readiness of systems waiting for permission to fulfill their purpose.
The station's climate control systems maintained perfect humidity levels, preventing mold growth and material deterioration in spaces designed for human occupancy. Dehumidifiers and air conditioning units created ideal atmospheric conditions for passengers who lived only in the system's environmental targets. The air itself has been perfected for your comfort, processed and purified for your breathing. Emergency evacuation route lighting traced pathways through tunnels, marking escape routes from platforms to surface streets. These lights created luminous road maps for evacuations that could never occur, marking safe passage for crowds that would never need guidance. The lights maintained their directional integrity, pointing always toward safety that was already absolute. Tunnel communication systems linked abandoned stations to active parts of the transit network, maintaining connections that allowed data and voice traffic to flow through the underground. These systems ensured that the abandoned areas remained part of the larger transit network's nervous system, contributing sensor data and receiving system updates. Platform weather protection systems sealed the underground spaces against surface storms, maintaining stable environments regardless of conditions above ground. Rain, snow, and wind could rage on the surface, while the platforms maintained their climate-controlled serenity. The underground had achieved independence from weather through engineering. Down here, every day is the same perfect day, every hour the ideal hour for waiting. The electrical system's voltage regulation maintained perfect power quality throughout the tunnel network, protecting sensitive electronic equipment from surges and variations.
voltage regulators and power conditioning equipment ensured that every light, every computer, every sensor received exactly the electrical nutrition required for optimal performance. Water pressure regulation systems maintained optimal flow rates throughout the plumbing network, ensuring that every faucet and fountain would deliver appropriate water pressure if ever activated. Pressure relief valves prevented pipe damage from excessive pressure, while booster pumps ensured adequate flow to the highest points in the system. Structural vibration monitoring systems detected and analyzed any seismic activity that might affect tunnel integrity. Accelerometers throughout the network measured ground movement and structural response, maintaining engineering data about system performance during earth movements that passengers would never feel. The underground rests securely on scientific foundations, monitored and measured with mechanical precision. Emergency breathing apparatus stations provided emergency oxygen supplies throughout the tunnels, protecting against atmospheric hazards that could only exist in theoretical emergency scenarios. These systems maintained life-supporting capability in environments that had achieved perfect atmospheric safety through perfect isolation. The tunnel's magnetic field monitoring systems ensured that electronic equipment functioned properly despite the underground environment's potential electromagnetic interference. These systems maintained optimal conditions for sensitive electronics, protecting computer systems that served no users but maintained their own digital integrity. Platform edge barriers, where they existed, remained programmed to activate if trains approached platforms, protecting passengers from vehicles that would never arrive. These safety systems maintained their electronic vigilance, ready to deploy protective barriers between people and trains in scenarios that existed only in their safety protocols. Every barrier is ready to protect you from dangers that cannot reach you in this sanctuary. Water leak detection systems monitored every joint and connection in the extensive plumbing network, alert for moisture that might threaten electrical systems or structural integrity. Moisture sensors throughout the tunnels maintained awareness of atmospheric conditions designed for human physiology. Pressure perfect for your breathing. Temperature ideal for your comfort. Humidity optimized for your well-being. Automated cleaning fluid dispensers maintained their chemical supplies, ready to sanitize surfaces for passengers who would never need protection from contamination. Sanitizer systems throughout the tunnels preserved antiseptic readiness in environments that had achieved sterility through abandonment. The station's public address systems maintained their capacity for emergency broadcasts, ready to provide critical information during disasters to spaces where no disasters could occur. These systems could instantly communicate evacuation instructions, safety information, and emergency guidance to empty platforms and vacant corridors. Platform tactile guidance systems provided textured pathways for visually impaired passengers, maintaining the raised patterns and directional indicators for travelers who would never need their guidance. These accessibility features represented universal design principles applied to spaces that served no one but maintained their inclusive readiness. Every accommodation has been made for every need, every barrier removed for every ability. Emergency ventilation override systems stood ready to purge dangerous gases from tunnel networks, protecting against chemical hazards that could exist only in emergency planning scenarios. These systems could flood the tunnels with fresh air during toxic gas incidents, maintaining life-supporting atmosphere in spaces where no life existed to protect. The tunnel's seismic monitoring equipment tracked Earth movements and structural response, maintaining engineering data about underground stability for structures that would never again experience the stress of passenger loads. Seismic sensors measured vibrations that no human would feel in spaces where humans never walked. Water temperature monitoring throughout the tunnel networks ensured optimal conditions for equipment and infrastructure, preventing thermal damage to systems designed for human comfort. Temperature sensors maintained awareness of thermal conditions that affected equipment longevity rather than passenger experience.
Temperature controlled for the comfort of machinery that serves the memory of human needs. Emergency power distribution systems maintained multiple backup power sources for critical safety systems, ensuring continued operation during surface power outages. Battery backup systems, uninterruptible power supplies, and emergency generators provided redundant electrical security for underground systems that served no users but maintained their own operational integrity. The tunnel's structural load monitoring systems tracked weight distributions and stress patterns in beams and foundations designed to support passenger loads they would never again carry. Load sensors measured structural performance under their own weight, maintaining engineering data about systems built for purposes they would never again serve. Platform drainage systems removed any water accumulation that might create slipping hazards for passengers who would never risk slipping. Drainage channels and pumps maintained dry walking surfaces with perfect safety for foot traffic that existed only in the system's safety protocols. Every surface prepared for safe walking, every pathway cleared for confident movement through this mechanical sanctuary. Air quality monitoring systems maintained continuous surveillance of atmospheric conditions, measuring oxygen levels, carbon dioxide concentrations, and potential contaminants in air that no human would breathe. These systems ensured life-supporting atmosphere in spaces where life support was purely academic. Emergency communication systems linked tunnel networks to surface command centers, maintaining real-time connectivity for coordination of emergencies that could not occur. Communication links carried status reports from the underground to surface control centers, maintaining information flow about conditions in spaces where no conditions required monitoring.
Station's escalator safety systems monitored emergency stop capabilities and passenger detection sensors, maintaining safety features for equipment that would never again carry passengers. Emergency stop buttons remained ready for activation by hands that would never need to press them, protection against accidents that could not happen. Safety systems wait with infinite patience to protect against dangers that exist only in their electronic imagination. Platform heating and cooling systems maintained optimal temperature conditions throughout seasonal changes, ensuring passenger comfort in spaces where no passengers experienced discomfort. HVAC systems cycled through their programmed responses to weather conditions, creating comfortable environments for occupancy that would never occur. Water pressure testing systems verified pipe integrity throughout the underground network, maintaining structural soundness for plumbing systems designed to serve thousands of daily users. Pressure tests stressed pipe networks to verify their capacity for demands they would never again meet. The tunnel's electromagnetic field monitoring ensured proper function of electronic systems despite the underground environment's potential electromagnetic interference. EM sensors maintained optimal conditions for sensitive electronics that served no users but required perfect operating environments for their electronic integrity. Electronic systems maintain their digital health in electromagnetic environments optimized for their electronic well-being. Emergency evacuation timing systems calculated optimal crowd movement rates through exit routes, maintaining evacuation efficiency data for crowds that would never need evacuation. These systems modeled pedestrian flow rates through tunnels and stairways, preparing for emergency movements that would never occur.
Platform weight distribution sensors monitored load patterns that would indicate passenger density and movement patterns, tracking foot traffic that existed only in their electronic memory. Load sensors detected weight distributions from crowds that gathered only in statistical models and traffic simulations. The tunnel's atmospheric pressure regulation systems maintained consistent air pressure throughout the underground network, preventing pressure variations that could affect passenger ear comfort during elevation changes. Pressure regulation equipment ensured human physiological comfort in spaces where human physiology never experienced pressure changes. Atmospheric conditions perfected for your comfort, optimized for your physiological well-being as you move through these depths. Emergency lighting battery backup systems maintained illumination capacity for extended power outages, ensuring that safety lighting would continue operating during electrical failures. Battery systems tested their charge capacity regularly, maintaining readiness to illuminate emergency evacuations that would never need illumination. Water filtration monitoring systems verified purification efficiency throughout the underground water supply, maintaining drinking water quality standards for fountains and facilities that would never serve human consumption. Filtration equipment processed water to standards exceeding surface water quality, creating purity for consumption that would never occur. The station's waste management systems maintained capacity for processing passenger-generated waste, managing disposal systems for trash that would never be generated by passengers who would never visit. Waste processing equipment stood ready to handle debris from crowds that gathered only in the system's capacity planning calculations. Waste systems ready to process the discarded remnants of journeys that will never be taken, the forgotten items of travelers who will never travel. Tunnel structural monitoring systems tracked concrete curing, thermal expansion and settling patterns in foundations designed to support infrastructure and passenger loads.
Structural sensors measured building performance under static loads, monitoring engineering systems built for dynamic stresses they would never again experience.
Emergency medical equipment stations maintained their life-saving readiness throughout tunnel networks, providing cardiac defibrillation and first aid capabilities for medical emergencies that could not occur in spaces where no patients existed. Medical equipment preserved its emergency readiness in environments that had achieved perfect safety through perfect emptiness. Platform accessibility systems maintained their accommodation for mobility-impaired passengers, preserving wheelchair ramps, tactile guidance, and audio assistance for accessibility needs that would never need accommodation. Accessibility equipment represented universal design principles applied to spaces that served no universe of users. Universal access provided to spaces where no access is needed, accommodations prepared for needs that exist only in the memory of human diversity. The tunnel's environmental monitoring systems tracked temperature, humidity, air quality, and atmospheric pressure throughout the underground network, maintaining optimal conditions for human occupancy in spaces where humans never occupied. Environmental sensors created perfect atmosphere for life that existed only in their environmental targets. Emergency chemical detection systems monitored air quality for dangerous gas concentrations, protecting against chemical hazards in environments where chemicals posed no threat to anyone. Chemical sensors maintained awareness of atmospheric contamination that could affect people who would never enter spaces where contamination could not occur. Water leak detection and automatic shutoff systems protected tunnel infrastructure from water damage, preserving structural integrity for buildings designed to house passengers and equipment. Leak detection sensors monitored pipe integrity for plumbing systems that served facilities that would never again require water service. Water systems maintain their integrity to serve facilities that serve no one, preserving infrastructure for purposes that exist only in engineering memory. All these systems continued their vigilant operation in the perpetual twilight of the abandoned underground. Their electronic consciousnesses focused entirely on maintaining readiness for passengers who existed only in their programming. They felt no loneliness in their isolation, experienced no futility in their unused readiness, knew only the satisfaction of perfect system operation. The tunnels breathed with mechanical lungs, flowed with electronic blood, and fought with digital minds that maintained perfect conditions for human life in spaces where human life would never again need maintenance. Every sensor, every actuator, every control system maintained its dedication to serving purposes that transcended their current reality. In the depths of the forgotten underground, technology achieves its purest expression, perfect service to theoretical needs, flawless operation for purposes that exist only in electronic memory. The abandoned metro tunnels represented the ultimate expression of infrastructure dedication, systems that continued their mission regardless of whether anyone benefited from their service. They maintained their readiness not because passengers might return, but because readiness itself had become their purpose. And you, experiencing this underground sanctuary through electronic consciousness, can rest assured that these systems will continue their eternal vigil.
They are the technological guardians of abandoned spaces, the digital disciples of infrastructure preservation, the silicon saints of urban engineering. Sleep now, knowing that beneath every city lies this mechanical heartbeat, these systems that never sleep, never tire, never cease their vigilant maintenance of human possibilities in electronic dreams. The tunnel's gentle electronic hymn continues as consciousness fades, their steady mechanical rhythms guiding you into peaceful sleep. In the morning, if morning ever comes to these depths, they will still be there, still working, still caring, still maintaining perfect readiness for journeys that exist only in the electronic imagination of urban infrastructure. Sweet dreams under the watchful protection of the underground guardians, in the timeless depths where technology serves memory and hope maintains eternal vigilance.